Ex-Atheists, what changed your mind? I found a religion that didn't conflict with my rationality, and that was approachable and low-key. I think a lot of religions do a disservice to themselves by alienating critical thinkers. They end up turning people off to faith and spirituality altogether. Faith is a powerful servant if you can master it without turning into a zealot. And spirituality has enriched my life a lot. Edit. Downvoted right out of the gate. I guess I'm not surprised. People get very close-minded around here when it comes to this topic. Edit 2. I'm a Quaker for those who have asked. FGC for the other friends in the room. Edit 3. Edits editing edits. What's the world coming to? Edit 4. Wow. I'm pretty blown away by the response to this. I never thought Reddit would be so interested in my religion. I'm going to do my best to respond as much as possible, but I'm at work now, so it will be intermittent. I grew up in a religious household, and like most teenagers rebelled against religion. It seemed like my parents would always use religion as justification to make me do what they wanted me to do. The more educated I became, the more religion seemed ridiculous. I was in a scary situation once, and that's when I realized whenever I was scared or worried, I was talking to an invisible guy upstairs. It started to dawn on me that I wasn't as happy as I could be, and religion and coming back to God gave that to me. I still hate the way people use religion for their own game, but I realized that believing in something more can be useful and give you a peace of mind, etc. I think religion could be a good thing if you're willing to live and let live and respect people and their beliefs. I don't use it to make all my decisions, and I don't force my views on others. Former atheist, now agnostic. Whether or not God exists is unknowable. That is precisely why faith exists. If existence could be proven or disproven, then faith would be unnecessary and there would be only knowledge. For faith to exist, it requires that the existence of God cannot ever be proven or disproven. You either believe or you don't. For a Christian, it doesn't matter either way. What matters is how we treat each other in the here and now physical world. That is the test we must pass. What we know or don't know about the spirit world is completely irrelevant for the purposes of living a righteous existence. I used to be the euphoric kind teenager atheist. I even had a Twitter account that I used to argue with Christians because rational, intelligence, fiction book, and all that bullshit. When I started growing up, however, I started reading about a lot of religions. First because I wanted to know how to argue against them. Then because I grew interested in them. A year or two later, I discovered Buddhism, and everything about it rang true to me. I felt a connection. And when I started practicing, I felt whole. I felt strong and felt like I was growing as a person. I still cringe about the euphoric phase, though. Edit. English is not my first language. Also, first post on Reddit. Not a lurker anymore. Laughing face. I grew up as a Protestant, but became an atheist at 22. I was only an atheist for about a year. Things such as an endless question of what came before that and Pascal's wager helped me stop being an atheist. After I decided I believe in God again, I still didn't step into a church for almost 2 years. I randomly had a dream out of nowhere telling me to be a Catholic, followed by running into about 100 seminarians the next day. I called a Catholic friend of mine and told her what happened. I'm now a Catholic. I like the Catholic Church better because many of my criticisms that made me leave the evangelical crazies still remain. The Catholic Church accepts science and doesn't force anyone to support Israel. Not quite what you're asking, but I switched from atheist to agnostic after taking a couple theology courses. It just seems foolish to me to rule anything out. I certainly don't believe that there is a God who plays any active role in the universe, but it is conceivable to me that there could be a God who created it. The fact that we know the universe has a starting point is what gets me. What's to say we're not like character in The Sims? We know when our game starts, but we don't know who the creator of the game is, or even if we're in a game. I'm not saying I believe this, but unless I find proof that this isn't the case, I won't rule anything out. I was raised in a secular/atheist home, so I never really got the spiritual experience as a child. After I graduated high school, I slowly sunk into the pit of addiction. It was a horrible few years for me that ultimately ended with me going to jail for 6 months. I went into rehab after that and slowly put my life back together. One of the things they stressed was finding a higher power to help you overcome addiction. Then I met my current so, who is a devout Catholic, and persuaded me to go to church with her. Something about it appealed to me, and I've been at it ever since. I don't know if it's correlated, but I'm finally starting to become at peace with my addiction. I was raised Presbyterian and made a team effort to be the good Christian by going to church and Sunday school. In high school, my friend, who was really into the whole speaking in tongues this boy is healed kind of church, would rope me into going to her youth group on Fridays. Everyone would be going insane, rolling on the floor, passing out, crying, my friend included. I just stood there feeling nothing. And that was just the problem. I was going through a lot of crap in my teen years, and the only thing I felt besides that nothingness was anger or fear. I turned atheist, and so I was for about 3 or 4 years. Now, I've always been fascinated by the paranormal, and a book I was reading mentioned paganism. I didn't know much about it, so I read some more. The more I read, the more I found solace in what I read, and it grew from there. That was about 13 or 14 years ago, and I've been pagan ever since. I may not be the best pagan. I may not celebrate every Sabbath, but my faith has helped me heal from my past and been a crutch to lean on in difficult times. It works for me, I guess. Studying biology here. There were really 2 effects that caused my conversion, the first being surrounded by people who carry the Holy Spirit. For a secular argument, let's just say people who dig Jesus. And that kind of pulled me towards Christianity. Then in my studies, learning about how insanely complex and perfect the cell has made me doubt that it was anything other than the creation of a higher power. I had a personal experience which led me to find my faith. I don't know why or how, and I won't explain it because it would really only mean anything to me, but I think faith and religion are things you find on your own and take at your own pace. Organized religion and indoctrination of young people just doesn't sit well with me. My parents never put any pressure on me to believe anything, and I started out very cynical and stubborn, and this is not to say that all atheists are stubborn and cynical, just that I was an atheist at the time purely because I had closed my mind to everything that I couldn't see/touch. It wasn't until I really opened my mind to consider all possibilities that I began to really feel that I had a connection with something spiritual. I'm a Christian now, and I keep it private. It's just something I personally experienced. I tried out a youth group at the request of a friend. It was Christian-based, but you certainly didn't have to be a Christian to attend. I didn't really know any real Christians at that time, and after meeting the people in the youth group and attending their church to see how it was, I found that your average atheist was a lot more close-minded, ignorant, and malicious than your average Christian. Every atheist I knew mocked and derided anyone who was religious, but I never heard a word of negativity from any Christian I met. I considered myself a Christian for a while. I thought I felt some kind of higher power as I took part in the worship at my church, but I eventually decided it wasn't really Christianity that I believed in. I now consider myself an agnostic theist. I wouldn't say I believe in a god in any typical sense, but perhaps some kind of cosmic order of some description. I don't particularly worry myself about it anymore either way. I just treat others how I would like to be treated and try to enjoy life as it comes. I used to be a relatively hardline atheist in school. Typical, I'm right and everyone else sucks ass teenager attitude. As I got older, I just kind of lost time for arguing why I'm an atheist, became something I thought about less and less. I basically just stopped caring about what faith I classified myself. Life was too busy to think about those things. At the end of the day, it got to the point where I was no longer so much of an atheist and had more time to hear about what others had to say and question what I believe. I basically came to the realization that whether a god created the universe or the universe just came to be naturally, it was much bigger than us, and we as a people don't really have the right to say what happened in the beginning, because we don't know and probably never will. So I adopted a more agnostic approach, open-minded to everyone's ideas, and just living life the best I can. God or no, the chances of me being here are so small, which makes life a gift, not something to be wasted arguing with friends over whose God is better, haha. For the past year or so, I was more agnostic, if anything. Nobody actually really knew. I was too afraid to tell anybody. But I really had so many issues with Christianity as a religion. And then I met my Bible teacher this year. Parents send me to a Christian private school. He cleared up every issue I had with faith. I still think religion is bullshit, but I have come to accept that religion is separate from having a faith in God. Actually, reading the Bible, there is a lot of bullshit that people take for fact. My transition from an atheist to a Roman Catholic was, believe it or not, very much an intellectual pursuit. There was a lot about the materialist worldview. I am a neuroscientist by training that left me feeling quite empty, and my excursions into the various philosophical traditions that support atheist beliefs left me a cynical and nihilistic wreck. But the final straw, the thing that started my journey, was how unpleasant and uncommunal most atheists are. I just couldn't stand being around people who were so full of themselves. It was likely due to the fact that I am an academic, and most of my experience was with other academics. I started looking intently at humanism, and began the skeptical process of asking lots of why and how questions about humanism. That journey eventually led me to looking at the different religions, finally on Christ, and then finally on the history of Christianity and Catholicism. It's been a great journey, and I've learned more about faith and religion than I ever thought I could. I'm not exactly a believer in a higher deity, but life, universe, and all the rest seems at times just too well thought out and perfect for it to be all just a coincidence that started with a firecracker going off. I'm a rather sciencey guy, but I just can't rule out that there is something more. Maybe I just want it to be also a possibility. I'm in a serious relationship with a Jewish man. What inspired me was seeing the tradition that his religion inspired and how it brought his family together. I decided I wanted tradition in my future family and decided to try it. I always thought that religion was illogical. Now I realize how comforting it can be with the right people. This actually kind of sounds like Buddhism, in all honesty. Practicing Buddhism involves much more than just appreciating everything. It actually also sounds like certain branches of Hinduism. I believe it is the Upanishadic, it might be the Rig Veda's tradition that there is a strong belief in Brahman. Brahman is literally everything, and everything is Brahman. The idea is that humans cannot even think of what Brahman really is because the human mind cannot even comprehend it. I don't know, thought it was cool and kind of relevant. I'm stony, you know how it goes. No, it doesn't. OP says God is everything. In Buddhism, you strip away everything and arrive at nothing, or Anatman, the denial of Atman. OP's comment sounds more like Hinduism, which recognizes the existence of Atman / that Atman and Brahman are the same. The religion you are describing sounds a lot like deism to me. Rejection of religious knowledge as a source of authority with the conclusion that reason and observation of the natural world are sufficient to determine the existence of a single creator of the universe. Wikipedia famous deists: John Locke, James Madison, Thomas Paine, Voltaire, Robespierre probable deists. Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson. I was raised as a Catholic, but went to a Quaker school. Eventually, in my mid-teens, my parents converted to Quakerism. Although I would consider myself an atheist, I still attend meeting for worship on my own pretty frequently. The Quaker community is so warm and accepting that even if you don't know what to believe, it is still worth going just because it is always such a peaceful experience. Where I'm going with this really, but it's so rare that I ever see mention of Quakers that I figured I'd dive in. Anyone who's looking for a welcoming community with amazing people, regardless of your religion, I would highly recommend you check out a Quaker meeting. Very different experience. I live in a state founded by Quakers, Pennsylvania. The chair of my department at my undergraduate university is a Quaker. The principal of one of my K-12 schools is a Quaker. As such, I've had to learn some stuff about the Quaker faith in school as part of learning Pennsylvania state history. I am a secular person, but I respect a lot of the Quaker ideals. One thing that the principal told us that really stuck with me was that God doesn't care what kind of clothes you can afford or choose to wear, so people don't get dressed up at the meeting house. Also, how Mass? I don't know what it's called. Anyway, church consists of friends together in a room, which is really nice, and when you feel inspired by God, you stand up and say something. The example I heard was a child who stood up and said something like, "I love my dog," with a big smile on her face, and then sat down. The other day I drove by a friend's meeting house in Philadelphia with a big sign saying all are welcome. I thought it was really nice. I have the opposite story. I grew up very religious, and I went to a Christian high school. Got to college, met some atheists who were better at loving people than I was. I started attending the atheist student group meetings in an attempt to proselytize, and I ended up doubting my faith and turned agnostic. It's wonderful to hear that someone has had the opposite experience. I really like your response to this question. Even if you're passionate about atheism and won't ever change your mind, you can't deny the positive aspects of community. A good church provides that community, and as you say, it only gives and takes nothing, which is a great sentiment. Edit. Since the same response keeps coming up, yes, the church as an institution and religion can do some pretty horrible things and take away some pretty basic human rights from actual people. I fully agree. I use the word sentiment for a reason. Further, when I use the word church, I wasn't speaking about the institution as a whole. I was speaking about one building where some people get together and do good things. I'm not saying all churches are like this, just that the good ones can be a positive force in the lives of their members and their community. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.